Hi, my name's Joe Bartolomeo. I'm an attorney with offices in Beaverton and Astoria, and I represent injured people, and I'm putting together a series of videos that explain the issues that I see people encounter early on in their claim. Today I'm going to talk about time limits. Now, any attorney is going to be a little bit uncomfortable talking about time limits because there's a lot of issues that can go into what time limit applies to your particular case. So before I get into this, be aware that the time limits could vary in your case, and the theme really to take away from this is you should know what those time limits are. I will give you just some basic background information about the various time limits that people commonly face in their auto injury claims in the state of Oregon. And that's a big deal because every state has different sets of time limits. So if you've been injured in a car that's insured in the state of Oregon, then you have a no-fault medical insurance called Personal Injury Protection, or PIP, P-I-P. And you're covered for your medical expenses, but only those expenses incurred within 1 year of the date of the collision. After the 1 year, you lose those benefits. So that's one time limit to keep in mind. Another time limit, and this is probably the single most important time limit, is what we call the statute of limitations. You'll also hear the term limitation on actions. It's the time you have to have your claim either settled or filed in court. And in Oregon, for an injury claim, generally it's 2 years from the date you were injured. Now there's a lot of exceptions to that. There's longer time limits depending upon who you are, but 2 years is the general rule in the state of Oregon. Now, if you were injured in the state of Washington, generally speaking, the time limit to have your claim resolved or filed in court is 3 years. But let's look at a couple other issues that can change those time limits. Let's look at the issues where the time limits are even shorter than the 2 or the 3 years. Oregon has a statute called the Oregon Tort Claims Act, and that's a statute that tells you how to go about making a claim against a government entity or agency. So let's take an example. If you were injured in a car collision and the car that injured you was owned by the state of Oregon, you have to file a tort claim notice. You have to do that for an injury claim within 6 months of the date of the collision, and you have to make that claim to the proper agency, and that claim has to include specific information. If you don't make that claim within the 6 months, you are not allowed to make a claim against that government agency, and you have no claim at all. So that's something that you should be aware of. Washington has a different Tort Claim Act, and there are different time limits, and they have more of a centralized system where you have to provide notice of the claim. And in Washington, you generally have to provide a lot more specific information about the claim. There are special time limits for children. There are special time limits if you have a wrongful death claim, if you're representing somebody's estate in a wrongful death claim. So it's important to know what your time limits are because you may be shut out of your claim completely. If you're not sure about what your time limits are on a particular claim and you have questions, call us. 503-325-8600. We can answer your questions, find out where you stand with your claim. Thanks for watching.